Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the morning sun rise over New Busan Colony. The golden light touched endless fields of wheat that stretched to the horizon. Children ran between the grain stalks, laughing as they played games. Their parents worked nearby, harvesting crops that would feed dozens of worlds across the galaxy. This was what humanity had built in the stars. Not weapons or war machines, but farms and schools and homes. Kim Tae-ho smiled as he watched a group of alien refugees from the Kathan Civil War learning to drive human farming equipment. The humans had welcomed them without question, giving them land and tools to start new lives. "Beautiful morning, Admiral," said Dr. Park So-ra as she joined him at the observation window. She carried a tablet filled with reports about colony expansion and trade agreements. Her daughter Min-ji had drawn pictures on the margins. Stick figures of humans and aliens holding hands under bright suns. "It is," Kim Tae-ho agreed. "Hard to believe our ancestors once fought wars over dirt and water when there are whole galaxies, full of empty worlds to settle." Dr. Park nodded. As Chief Colonial Administrator, she had spent the last 15 years helping humanity spread peacefully across the stars. Every new colony was built on the same principles. Welcome all species, share resources freely, and never take by force what could be gained through friendship. The communication system buzzed. Captain Lee Do-hyun appeared on screen from his patrol ship near the border. He was young for a captain, only 32, but he had earned his rank through skill and dedication to the peace protocols. "Admiral, we're picking up increased Vorthak fleet movements near the neutral zone," Do-hyun reported. "Nothing aggressive yet, but their ships are moving closer to our territory." Kim Tae-ho frowned. The Vorthak hegemony had been making threats for months, claiming that humans were too weak to deserve their rich colonies. Their leader, Overlord Krextar, believed that only the strong should control resources. He saw human kindness as weakness. "Any response to our diplomatic messages?" Dr. Park asked. "None, Doctor. They're not answering our calls for talks." Commander Choi Hae-jin's voice came through the speakers from Intelligence Command. "Admiral, I've been tracking Vorthak communications. They're calling us soft meat and false peace lovers. Their military commanders are arguing that we'll run away if they attack." Kim Tae-ho closed his eyes for a moment. He was old enough to remember the stories his grandfather told about the old days, when humans fought each other over everything. Those days were supposed to be over. Humanity had learned better ways. "Keep monitoring them," he ordered. "But maintain our peaceful stance. We don't want to give them any excuse to claim we threatened them first." Dr. Park looked worried. "Tae-ho, maybe we should move some of our defense ships closer to the colonies, just in case." "The Colonial Council voted against military buildup," Kim Tae-ho reminded her. "They believe showing weapons will make the Vorthaks more aggressive. We're supposed to trust in diplomacy." Down on New Busan, Farmer Bae Junsik was teaching a group of Alterian children how to plant corn. The blue-skinned aliens were eager students, asking questions about soil and water and growth cycles. Their families had fled their homeworld when it became too polluted to support life. Humans had given them a new chance. "Why do humans help us when we have nothing to give back?" asked young Alterian girl. Bae smiled. "Because helping others is what makes us human. We believe everyone deserves a good life." On Terra Nova Colony, engineer Bayek Ji-woo was showing Krinian refugees how to build houses using human construction methods. The insect-like aliens were amazed by human architecture. "Buildings designed for comfort and beauty, not just function. Your species builds homes like art," said the Krinian elder. "Most races just make boxes to sleep in." "We spend most of our lives in our homes," Beck explained. "They should make us happy." At Harmony Station, the orbital platform that connected all three major colonies, Ambassador Han Yuri was meeting with representatives from 12 different species. They were discussing a new trade agreement that would help everyone share resources fairly. The human proposal is too generous, said the Zalani ambassador. You're offering more than you're asking for in return. Han smiled. We have plenty. Why not share it? When everyone does well, we all do well. But not everyone in the galaxy saw human generosity as strength. In the war rooms of the Vorthak hegemony, military commanders studied maps of human space with hungry eyes. Look at their defenses, growled General Vexnor. A few patrol ships and some old cargo vessels. They have the richest colonies in 3 sectors, and they barely guard them. Overlord Krextar slammed his clawed fist on the table. Humans are weak. They give away their strength to alien refugees and waste their resources on peace talks. We take what we want. That is the Vorthak way. The older species warn us about humans, said Admiral Thulkin carefully. They say humans were once great warriors. Krextar laughed. That was centuries ago. These soft farmers are nothing like their ancestors. They've forgotten how to fight. When we attack, they'll beg for mercy or run away to find new worlds to hide on. Back on the human ships, Commander Choi Hye-jin was reading intelligence reports that made her stomach twist with worry. The Vorthaks weren't just making threats anymore. They were moving battle fleets into position around human space. Admiral, she called Kim Tae-ho. You need to see this. Vorthak ships are taking positions around all 3 of our main colonies. This looks like preparation for coordinated attacks. Kim Tae-ho studied the star maps showing red dots surrounding the blue markers of human worlds. His military training from decades ago was stirring in his memory, recognizing attack patterns and strategic positions. How many ships? He asked. Over 300 combat vessels. Admiral, this is enough firepower to level our colonies. Dr. Park arrived at the command center, still carrying her daughter's artwork. What's happening? The Vorthaks are surrounding our worlds, Kim Tae-ho said quietly. I think they're planning to attack. That's impossible, Dr. Park said. We've done nothing to threaten them. We've offered to share our farming techniques, our medical knowledge, even our terraforming technology. Why would they want to hurt us? Commander Choi pulled up recordings of Vorthak military communications. Because they think we're weak. They believe kindness equals cowardice. Kim Tae-ho watched the red dots on the screen. Each one represented a warship full of weapons pointed at human families, at children playing in wheat fields, at refugees who had found safety in human space. Send a message to all Vorthak commanders, he ordered. Tell them we want to talk. Offer them trade agreements, technology transfers, anything they want. Just keep them talking. Captain Lee Do-hyun's voice crackled through the speakers from his patrol ship. Admiral, Vorthak vessels are powering up their weapons. They're not responding to our communication attempts. On New Busan, the evening shift was beginning at the schools. Human teacher Park Hyo-jin was reading stories to a mixed class of human and alien children. They were learning about friendship and sharing and working together to solve problems. None of them knew that above their peaceful world, warships were moving into attack positions. Dr. Park looked at her daughter's drawing again, stick figures holding hands under a bright sun. They wouldn't really attack civilians, would they? Not children and families. Kim Tae-ho had served in space for 40 years. He had seen the best and worst of what thinking beings could do to each other. Dr. Park, I think you should send an emergency evacuation order to all colonies, just in case. The Council will never approve that. It would look like we're preparing for war. Maybe, Kim Tae-ho said quietly, watching the red dots creep closer to the blue ones. But if I'm right about what's coming, looking weak will be the least of our problems. In the distance, Vorthak Overlord Krextar was giving his final orders. To the attack fleets. Show the galaxy what happens to weak species who claim the best worlds. Burn their cities, destroy their farms. Let everyone see that only the strong deserve to survive among the stars. The peaceful giants were about to learn that sometimes, no matter how much you want peace, war comes looking for you anyway. The attack came without warning at 0300 hours, when most of the colonies were sleeping. Captain Lee Do-hyun was drinking coffee on his patrol ship when the sensors screamed. Hundreds of Vorthak warships dropped out of hyperspace around New Busan. "Colony! Their weapons were already charging! Emergency alert to all colonies!" Do-hyun shouted into his communicator. "We are under attack! Repeat, we are under attack!" But his warning came too late. The first plasma bombardment hit New Busan's agricultural zones, the golden wheat fields that had fed millions of beings across. The galaxy turned to glass in seconds. The heat was so intense that the ground melted 6 feet deep. Farmer Baejun-sik and the Altarian children he had been teaching were vaporized instantly, along with their dreams of harvesting corn together. On Terra Nova, Dr. Yunmin-ji was asleep in her bed when the orbital bombardment began. She was Dr. Park Sora's daughter, 8 years old, with drawings of spaceships and alien friends covering her bedroom walls. The biodomes that protected the colony's atmosphere shattered under the Vorthak assault. The little girl woke up gasping as poisonous gases flooded her room. She called for her mother, but Dr. Park was 3 systems away on a diplomatic mission. The Harmony Station orbital platform tried to fight back. Its few defensive weapons fired at the massive Vorthak fleet, but it was like throwing rocks at a tank. The station's commander, Captain Nam Soo-jin, managed to get one emergency message out before plasma cannons tore through the hull. "Admiral, Kim, they're killing everyone, the refugees, the children." The transmission cut off in static and fire. Admiral Kim Tae-ho received the first reports while standing in his command center. The words didn't seem real at first. "Coordinated attacks? Massive casualties? Colony defense systems destroyed. Sir," Commander Choi Hee-jin said with a shaking voice. "We're getting fragmentary reports from all 3 colonies. Vorthak fleets are bombing civilian areas. They're not targeting military installations. They're hitting schools, hospitals, and residential zones." The tactical display showed red dots surrounding the 3 human worlds. Each dot represented a Vorthak warship, raining death on peaceful families. The blue markers representing human patrol ships were disappearing one by one as the small vessels tried hopelessly to protect their worlds. Captain Lee Do-hyun's voice came through the speakers, filled with static and desperation. "Admiral, I'm trying to reach the evacuation centers on New Busan, but the whole surface is burning. The plasma bombardment is so intense that our ships can't get through to rescue anyone." Kim Tae-ho closed his eyes. In his mind, he could see Farmer Bae teaching alien children how to plant seeds. He could picture Dr. Park's daughter drawing happy pictures of humans and aliens living together. All of it was burning now. How many people were on those colonies? He asked quietly. 2.3 million beings, sir," Choi answered. "About 60% human, 40% refugees from other species that we've been helping." The number hit Kim like a physical blow. Over 2 million innocent people, including children who had never hurt anyone, aliens who had come to human space seeking safety, only to die because they trusted human protection. On the surface of Terra Nova, Engineer Baek Ji-woo was trying to save his Krinian neighbors. The insect-like aliens were trapped in their collapse. House and Beck was digging through the rubble with his bare hands. Above them, Vorthak bombers continued their runs, turning the beautiful colony into a wasteland. "Please," Beck shouted to a Vorthak pilot flying overhead. "They're just families. They're not soldiers." The pilot's response was another plasma burst that turned the entire street into molten rock. At Harmony Station, the orbital platform was breaking apart. Ambassador Han Yuri had been in a meeting with alien representatives when the attack began. Now, she was floating in an emergency pod, watching pieces of the station burn up in the atmosphere below. The 12 species she had been helping negotiate trade agreements were all dead, killed because they had trusted human promises of safety. Dr. Park Sora received the news while she was visiting the Korean Cultural Center on Earth. She had been showing alien visitors traditional Korean art when her emergency communicator started screaming alerts. At first, she couldn't understand what the voices were telling her. Colony attacks. Massive casualties. Her daughter's name on the casualty lists. Minji, she whispered, staring at the report. My little girl. The funeral ceremony would have to wait. There were too many dead to count, and the attacks were still happening. Overlord Krek-Star broadcast his victory message to the entire galaxy while the colonies were still burning. His hideous face filled screens on 1,000 worlds as he declared his conquest. Behold the fate of weaklings, he roared. The humans claimed to be protectors, but they could not protect even their own children. Their pathetic pacifism has earned them extinction. We take their worlds, their resources, and their lives. Let this be a lesson to all species. Only the strong deserve to survive. The broadcast showed footage of the burning colonies, human families running from plasma fires, alien refugees being hunted down by Vorthak soldiers, children crying for parents who would never answer. Across the galaxy, other species watched the destruction with horror, but many also watched with calculation. If the humans were truly this weak, perhaps it was time to choose stronger allies. The Altarian Council sent a carefully worded message expressing regret for the unfortunate incident, but stopped short of condemning the attacks. The Zalani Federation offered to mediate between humans and Vorthaks, as if this was a dispute between equals rather than unprovoked genocide. Only the ancient Kethan Elder, whose people had been saved by human kindness, sent a different message. Young humans, we remember what your ancestors were capable of when roused to anger. The galaxy has forgotten, but we have not. Our prayers are with you in this dark hour. Captain Lee Do-hyun managed to rescue 300 survivors from New Busan before the orbital bombardment made further rescues impossible. 300. People out of nearly 1 million. The survivors told stories that would haunt the galaxy. They hunted us like animals, said one refugee, a blue-skinned Altarian child who had lost her parents. The Vorthak soldiers were laughing while they killed people. They said humans deserved to die for being weak. Engineer Baek Ji-woo was among the few survivors of Terra Nova. He had managed to save 12 Crinian families, but thousands more had died in the collapsed biodomes. The aliens looked at him with confused eyes. You told us humans would protect us, said the Crinian elder. You promised we would be safe. Baek had no answer. He had believed those promises too. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood in the ruins of his command. Center after a Vorthak strike force hit his flagship. The attack had been personal. They wanted him to watch his people die before they killed him too. But his ship's armor had held, and he was still alive when he should have been dead. Dr. Park Sora arrived on the rescue ship 12 hours after the attacks ended. She had flown through hyperspace at maximum speed, hoping against hope that the reports were wrong. But when she saw the glowing craters where her daughter's school had been, the truth crashed down on her like a physical weight. She knelt in the radioactive ash that had once been a playground and picked up a melted piece of metal. It might have been part of a swing set or a child's toy. She couldn't tell anymore. Admiral, she said into her communicator, her voice strangely calm. I need to speak with you. Kim Tae-ho found her standing in what had been the colony's memorial garden, where they honored the dead from the old wars that humanity had promised never to fight again. The garden was gone now, replaced by glass and ash. They killed our children, Dr. Park said without turning around. They killed aliens who trusted us to keep them safe. They're broadcasting our weakness to the galaxy and calling us cowards. Sora, I know you're grieving. I'm not grieving, Tae-ho. She turned to face him, and her eyes were completely dry. Grieving is what you do when someone dies of old, age or illness. This was murder, this was genocide, and they're proud of it. She held up her daughter's melted artwork, the stick figures barely visible in the twisted metal. We tried to be better than our ancestors. We tried to prove that intelligent beings could live together in peace. We built gardens instead of weapons. We welcomed strangers instead of killing them. Kim Tae-ho said nothing. He had seen the casualty reports, entire families wiped out, refugee camps targeted specifically because they held non-human civilians. They have reminded us what we truly are, Dr. Park continued. We are the descendants of the species that conquered every hostile environment on Earth. We are the children of the armies that swept across continents and the navies that ruled the oceans. We tried to forget that history, but they have given us cause to remember it. The emergency session of the Colonial Council convened that night on Earth. Representatives from across human space gathered to decide humanity's response to the greatest tragedy in their modern history. The debate was short. The Terran Colonial Federation is hereby dissolved, announced Secretary General Kim Min-soo. In its place, we establish the Terran War Machine. Our mission is no longer to build gardens among the stars. Our mission is to ensure that what happened to our children never happens to anyone else's children. The vote was unanimous. The change began within hours of the Colonial Council vote. Admiral Kim Tae-ho, now Supreme Fleet Commander of the Terran War Machine, stood in a command center that had been a diplomatic meeting hall just days before. The walls were covered with tactical displays showing every human system, every ship, every resource that could be turned into a weapon. "Show me what we have," he ordered. Commander Choi Hye-jin pulled up files that had been sealed for over 2 centuries. "Sir, activating the Terran protocols now. These are military plans that were created during our expansion but never implemented because of the peace doctrine." The screens filled with information that made Kim's eyes widen. Hidden shipyards that could build war vessels, industrial facilities that could switch from making farming equipment to producing weapons, transport ships that could be converted into carriers for attack craft. "How long has this been in place?" Kim asked. "Since the beginning of colonial expansion," Choi answered. "Our ancestors were peaceful, but they weren't stupid. They knew that someday someone might try to take what humans had built." Dr. Park, Sora, now Minister of War Production, walked through the vast underground facilities beneath Earth's surface. These tunnels had been described in public records as storage areas for emergency supplies. That was only partly true. In the deepest levels, massive automated factories waited in silence. These machines had been designed to build the tools of war, ships, weapons, armor, and things that were considered too dangerous for a peaceful civilization to keep active. "How long to reach full production?" she asked engineer Baek Ji-woo, who had survived Terra Nova and was now designing instruments of revenge. 6 months to reach maximum output," Baek replied. "But we can start building ships and weapons immediately. The first new vessels will be ready in 3 weeks. Dr. Park nodded. She no longer looked like the kind diplomat who had negotiated trade agreements. Her eyes held a cold fire that made veteran soldiers step aside when she walked past. "What kind of ships?" she asked. Beck showed her the designs on his tablet. "Not like the patrol vessels and cargo ships we've been building. These are pure warships. No diplomatic quarters, no civilian amenities, no cargo space for trade goods. Just weapons, armor, and the ability to hunt down enemies." Colonel Jang. Minho was busy reactivating the Human Marine Corps. The organization had been disbanded a century ago when humanity committed to peaceful expansion. Now, former soldiers were coming out of retirement, and young people were volunteering in numbers that overwhelmed the recruitment centers. "Sir," said Sergeant Major Lee Kai-tae, a veteran who had spent 30 years teaching school after his military service ended. "We have more volunteers than we can process. Everyone wants to sign up after what happened to the colonies." Jang looked at the lines of people waiting to join the Marines. They weren't just humans. Alien refugees who had survived the attacks were volunteering too, along with members of other species who had been horrified by the Vorthak genocide. "Train them hard," Jang ordered. "The Vorthaks thought humans were soft. Let's show them what human soldiers are really capable of when they're angry." Across human space, the transformation was visible to anyone watching. Trade ships stopped carrying cargo and started carrying military supplies. Civilian factories switched from making farming equipment to producing armor and weapons. The peaceful, shipping lanes became highways for military convoys. On the outer colonies, Captain Nam Soo-jin supervised the construction of the first new human warships in 2 centuries. She had survived the destruction of Harmony Station by pure luck. She had been testing a shuttle when the attack began. Now she commanded the shipyard that was building humanity's revenge. These vessels are different from anything we've built before, she told her construction teams. They're not designed to explore or trade or carry passengers. They exist for one purpose, to find enemies and destroy them completely. The new ships were sleek and deadly, painted black with red markings that identified them as belonging to the Terran war machine. Unlike the white and blue vessels of the old colonial federation, these ships looked like predators. Engineer Captain Song Dai-jung was designing the weapons systems. He had spent decades developing peaceful technologies, terraforming equipment, agricultural machines, medical devices. Now he was creating tools of destruction. The plasma cannons are based on our terraforming technology, he explained to his team. Instead of heating soil for farming, they superheat enemy armor until it vaporizes. The targeting systems use our medical scanners. They can identify enemy biology and adjust weapon settings for maximum effectiveness against each species. Dr. Lim Hyun-woo had been a peace researcher, studying ways to prevent conflicts between species. Now he was developing psychological warfare tactics specifically designed to break enemy morale. The Vorthax value strength above everything, he told his team. They believe fear is the only emotion that matters. We're going to show them what real fear looks like. His team was analyzing Vorthax psychology, finding weaknesses in their warrior culture that could be exploited. They studied the broadcasts of Overlord Krekstar's victory speech, looking for signs of overconfidence that could be turned against him. They think they understand humans because they see our peaceful colonies, Dr. Lim continued. They have no concept of what human soldiers can do when they stop holding back. Meanwhile, other alien species were beginning to notice the changes in human space. The Alterian Council had expected humans to either surrender or retreat to distant systems. Instead, energy readings from human territory suggested massive industrial activity. "What are they building?" asked Alterian Admiral Veltar. "Unknown," replied his intelligence officer. "Human space has gone dark. No diplomatic communications, no trade traffic, no cultural exchanges. It's like they've cut themselves off from the galaxy." The Zilani Federation was more concerned. Their spies reported seeing human ships that didn't match any known designs in the Colonial Fleet database. "These vessels are clearly military," reported Zilani Intelligence Director Carl Seen. "But humans haven't built military ships in over a century. Where did these designs come from?" The answer was buried in classified human archives that no alien had ever been allowed to see. The Terran protocols contained detailed plans for military technologies that had been developed but never used, waiting for a day when humanity might need to remember how to fight. Captain Lee Do-hyun was now commanding one of the new warships, a vessel called the Retribution. He had been given a choice of assignments after surviving the colony attacks, and he had chosen to lead the first strike force that would carry human revenge to enemy territory. "Sir," said his weapons officer, Lieutenant Woo Kyung-min, "the new plasma cannons are ready for testing." Do-hyun looked at the target, a captured Vorthak transport ship that had been used to carry supplies for the colony attacks. The ship was empty now, but it represented everything he hated about the enemies who had murdered children while they slept. "Fire," he ordered. The plasma cannon discharged with a sound like thunder. The enemy ship didn't just explode, it vaporized, completely, leaving nothing but glowing particles floating in space. "Good," Do-hyun said quietly. "Now we know our weapons work." Back on Earth, Supreme Fleet Commander Kim Tae-ho was meeting with representatives from the few alien species that had condemned the Vorthak attacks. The Kethan Elder had come personally, along with delegates from 3 other species that remembered human military capabilities from the old stories. "Commander Kim," said the Kethan elder, "our records speak of human warriors from centuries past. Are those stories true?" Kim considered his answer carefully. "Elder, humans have always had the capacity for both creation and destruction. We chose to focus on creation for the past 2 centuries. Recent events have reminded us that sometimes destruction is necessary to protect what we have created. The galaxy does not remember what angry humans are capable of," the elder continued. "Should we be concerned?" "Not if you remain our friend," Kim replied. "But those who target human civilians, they should be very concerned indeed." Minister Park Sora was reviewing production reports when Commander Choi brought her the latest intelligence from Vorthak space. "Ma'am, they're planning additional attacks. Overlord Krextar is using his victory over our colonies to recruit more species to his alliance. He's telling them that humans are easy targets." Park looked at the reports showing Vorthak military build-up. They were preparing to attack other peaceful species, emboldened by what they saw as an easy victory over humanity. "How many species are considering joining them?" she asked. "At least 6, possibly more. They're all motivated by the promise of easy conquests against weak targets." Park smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let them come. The more enemies we face at once, the more efficiently we can deal with them." She turned to her production. Charts. In 3 months, humanity would have a battle fleet larger than anything seen in galactic history. In 6 months, they would have weapons capable of destroying entire fleets in single engagements. "Commander, send a message to all human citizens," she ordered. "Tell them the first phase of military buildup is complete. Tell them we remember who we are." The message went out on every human communication channel, reaching colonies and ships across dozens of systems. The human counterattack began at exactly 0300 hours. The same time the Vorthaks had attacked the colonies 6 months earlier. Supreme Fleet Commander Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the new flagship Vengeance, watching as his battle fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. 50 black warships hung in formation around him, each one carrying enough firepower to level a planet. "All ships report ready," announced Captain Nam Soo-jin from the communication station. "Target selection is confirmed," added Commander Choi Hee-jin from intelligence. "We have identified the 3 Vorthak fleet bases that launched the attacks on our colonies." Kim looked at the tactical display showing the locations of enemy forces. The Vorthaks had spread their fleets across multiple systems, confident that humans were too weak to threaten them. That confidence was about to become their destruction. "Launch Phase 1, Kim ordered. "Show them what happens when you wake sleeping predators." The human fleet vanished into hyperspace. Admiral Krexnor was commanding the Vorthak base at Krylon when the humans arrived. He was the same officer who had led the bombardment of New Busan, personally ordering the destruction of the wheat fields, where children had played. He was reviewing plans for new attacks when his sensors detected the incoming human ships. "Sir, 50 unknown vessels dropping out of hyperspace," reported his sensor officer. "Configuration unknown, but they're heading directly for our position." Krexnor laughed. "Humans! They finally found the courage to fight back. Prepare our fleet for combat. This will be entertaining." But when the human ships emerged from hyperspace, Krexnor's laughter died in his throat. These weren't the white and blue civilian vessels he had expected. These were warships unlike anything in the galactic databases, sleek black predators that radiated menace. "Sir," said his weapons officer nervously, "those ships, they don't match any known human designs." "Impossible," Krexnor snarled. "Humans build cargo ships and farming equipment. They don't have military technology." Captain Lee Do-hyun commanded the lead attack vessel, the ship he had named Retribution, after the friends he had lost trying to defend the colonies. His crew was a mix of former peacekeepers and new volunteers, all united by the same burning desire for justice. "Target the command ship," Do-hyun ordered. "Let's send Admiral Krexnor a personal message from the children he murdered." The Retribution's main plasma cannon charged with a sound like gathering thunder. The weapon was based on terraforming technology, designed to heat soil for farming, but engineer Song Dae-jung had modified it to generate temperatures hot enough to melt starship armor in seconds. "Fire!" Do-hyun commanded. The plasma beam struck Krexnor's flagship dead center. The Vorthak admiral had time for one surprised scream before his entire ship vaporized. The explosion was so intense that nearby Vorthak vessels were damaged by the shockwave. "One down," Do-hyun announced to the fleet. 47 to go." The human attack was unlike anything the Vorthaks had ever experienced. Instead of the chaotic battle they expected, the humans fought with precision that was almost mechanical. Each ship had a specific target. Each weapon fired at the exact moment for maximum damage. Colonel Jang Min-ho led the Marine boarding parties. They captured the Vorthak supply depot on the moon below. His soldiers moved through the enemy base like shadows, appearing suddenly to eliminate guards and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. "Sir," reported Sergeant Major Lee Ki-tae as they secured the command center, "we've found the records of the colony attacks. They kept detailed files of the casualties they caused." Zhang looked at the data files showing pictures of dead human families, refugee camps that had been bombed, children who had been hunted down by Vorthak soldiers. The enemy had kept these records as trophies. "Download everything," he ordered, "and then destroy this place completely. Leave nothing standing." The Vorthak officers tried to surrender when they realized their fleet was being systematically destroyed. They broadcast pleas for mercy, offering to negotiate and return captured territory. Supreme Fleet Commander Kim received their communications with cold satisfaction. "This is Commander Kim of the Terran War Machine," he replied. "You targeted our civilians. You murdered our children. You bragged about your victory to the galaxy. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. There will only be consequences." At the second target system, the Vorthak fleet tried to run when they saw the human ships arriving, but the new human vessels were faster than anything the enemy had encountered. The fleeing ships were hunted down one by one and destroyed. Captain Woo Kyung-min commanded the pursuit squadron that eliminated the escaping enemies. Her ship, the Reckoning, caught up with a fleeing Vorthak destroyer just as it tried to jump to hyperspace. "Disable their engines," she ordered. "I want them to have time to think about what they did before they die." The human weapons struck with surgical precision, crippling the enemy ship without destroying it immediately. The Vorthak crew found themselves floating helplessly in space, watching the human vessels approach. "Please," the Vorthak captain begged, over the radio. "We were following orders. We didn't want to attack civilians." Captain Wu studied the enemy ship through her targeting scope. "According to our records, your vessel personally destroyed 3 refugee camps on Terra Nova. One of them was full of children who had just learned to speak basic." "We can make up for it," the Vorthak pleaded. "We can help you rebuild—" "No," Wu interrupted. "You can't. Fire all weapons." The crippled destroyer vanished in a ball of plasma. Dr. Lim Hyun-woo's psychological warfare was proving devastatingly effective. His team had analyzed Vorthak communications and identified the fears that their warrior culture tried to hide. They broadcast messages specifically designed to break enemy morale. "Attention Vorthak forces," his recorded message played on enemy communication channels. "You attacked sleeping children and called yourselves warriors. You bombed refugee camps and called yourselves strong. Now you face the descendants of the predators who conquered Earth. We are the species that survived ice ages and asteroid impacts. We are the children of the hunters who brought down creatures 10 times our size. You wanted to see what humans are capable of when we stop being peaceful. Look around you. This is just the beginning." The broadcasts were accompanied by footage of human ships systematically destroying Vorthak fleets. The enemy had expected desperate resistance from a beaten species. Instead, they faced methodical extermination by an enemy that seemed to feel no emotion except cold anger. At the third target system, the Vorthax tried to use their remaining civilian population as shields. They moved their military assets close to populated areas, hoping humans would hesitate to attack. They were wrong. Minister Park Sora had authorized the development of precision weapons that could eliminate military targets without harming nearby civilians. The human fleet demonstrated these capabilities by destroying Vorthak warships while leaving civilian structures completely untouched. "Sir," reported a Vorthak officer to his commanding general, "the humans just destroyed our entire fleet without harming a single civilian building. How is that possible?" General Vexnor, who had planned the attacks on human colonies, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His military base was gone, but the civilian city next to it was completely unharmed. The humans had weapons accurate enough to eliminate individual buildings while leaving everything around them intact. "What kind of technology do they have?" he whispered. His answer came in the form of a human landing force led by Colonel Jang Minho. The Marines moved through the city without threatening civilians, targeting only military personnel with weapons that seemed to know the difference between combatants and innocent bystanders. General Vexnor tried to hide among the civilian population, but the human soldiers found him easily. Their equipment could identify individual biosignatures from orbit. "General Vexnor," said Colonel Jang, as his Marines surrounded the cowering officer, "you ordered the bombing of the schools on New Busan. 500 children died in those attacks." "I was following orders," Vexnor pleaded. "Overlord Krextar commanded us to—" "You smiled when you gave those orders," Jang interrupted, showing him recordings from captured Vorthak communications. "You laughed about killing soft human children. Did you think we would forget? The general was taken alive, but only because the humans wanted him to testify about Vorthak war crimes. His fate would be decided later." Back in Vorthak space, Overlord Krextar was receiving reports that filled him with growing panic. 3 of his major fleet bases had been completely destroyed. Hundreds of his best ships were gone. Thousands of his officers were dead or captured. "How is this possible?" he raged at his remaining commanders. "Humans don't have military technology. They're farmers and merchants." "Sir," said his intelligence chief, sporting bandages from the last time Krextar had struck him, "we may have underestimated human capabilities. These ships are using technology we've never seen before." "Find out where they're building them," Krextar snarled. "Send scouts to human space, find their shipyards and destroy them." But the scout ships that tried to penetrate human territory simply vanished. The humans had established sensor networks that detected approaching enemies and automated defense systems that eliminated them before they could gather intelligence. 18 months after the first human counterattack, the Vorthak hegemony ceased to exist. Overlord Krextar spent his final moments aboard his flagship as Captain Nam Soo-jin's boarding party broke through the last defensive barriers. The tyrant, who had bragged about killing human children, was cowering behind his command throne when the human Marines found him. "Please," he begged, his warrior pride finally broken by months of watching his empire crumble. "I surrender. I can give you information about other hostile species." Captain Nam looked down at the creature who had ordered the destruction of peaceful colonies. She thought about the farmers who had died in their wheat fields, the children who had suffocated when the biodomes collapsed, the refugees who had trusted human protection only to be hunted down like animals. "Your surrender is noted," she said coldly. "It is also rejected." The former overlord died knowing that his entire civilization would follow him into oblivion. Supreme Fleet Commander Kim Tae-ho stood in the ruins of the Vorthak capital world's military command center, watching as human engineers cataloged captured weapons and technology. Everything useful would be studied and improved. Everything dangerous would be destroyed. "Sir," reported Colonel Jang Minho, "we've secured all remaining Vorthak military installations. Their fleet is completely eliminated. Their government has collapsed. Scattered groups are trying to surrender, but most of their leadership is dead." Kim nodded. The systematic destruction of Vorthak military power had taken less than 2 years, a remarkably short time to completely eliminate an empire that had terrorized multiple star systems. "What about the civilian populations?" Kim asked. "Unharmed," Jang replied. "Our forces have distributed food and medical supplies to Vorthak civilian areas. We're following the same protection protocols we used for refugee species." It was a crucial distinction. Humans had systematically destroyed every Vorthak military asset while carefully protecting civilian populations. The message to the galaxy was clear. Humans would eliminate threats, but they would not commit genocide. Minister Park So-ra was meeting with representatives from dozens of alien species who had requested human protection. The conference room was packed with delegates who had watched the destruction of the Vorthak war machine and decided they wanted to be on humanity's side. "Minister Park," said the Altarian ambassador, "the Altarian Council formally requests a mutual defense treaty. With the Terran war machine, we offer our industrial capacity in exchange for protection from hostile forces." Similar requests came from the Zalani Federation, the Krinian Republic, and even species that had previously been neutral or hostile to human expansion. "We'll consider all applications," Park replied diplomatically. "But understand that human protection comes with conditions. We will not tolerate aggression against civilian populations. Any species that targets non-combatants will face the same fate as the Vorthaks." The delegates nodded eagerly. They had all seen the footage of Vorthak fleets being methodically destroyed. None of them wanted to experience human military power. Firsthand, Admiral Wu Kyung-min was establishing the first human protection zone around former Vorthak territory. Her fleet patrolled the borders, ensuring that no hostile forces could threaten the civilian populations that remained. "Sir," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving requests for assistance from 3 different systems. 2 are dealing with pirate raids, and 1 is facing invasion by the Kraxan Syndicate. Dispatch response fleets to all 3 locations," Wu ordered. "Standard protection protocols. Eliminate military threats, protect civilians, establish monitoring stations." The human protection zones were expanding rapidly. Any species that requested human assistance received it, but they also accepted human oversight of their military activities. The galaxy was learning that peace came with a price, the complete abandonment of aggressive expansion. Dr. Lim Hyun-woo had moved from psychological warfare to diplomatic communications. His team now worked to prevent conflicts before they required military intervention. "The key is making potential aggressors understand the consequences," he explained to his staff. "We don't threaten them directly. We simply show them recordings of what happened to the Vorthaks and let them draw their own conclusions." The recordings were remarkably effective. Several species that had been planning military expansion against their neighbors suddenly discovered urgent domestic issues that required their attention instead. General Song Dae-jung commanded the new Human Defense Academy, where representatives from allied species learned human military tactics and technology. The training was carefully controlled. Allies received enough knowledge to defend themselves effectively, but not enough to threaten human interests. "The goal is stability," he told his instructors. "We want our allies to be strong enough to handle minor threats on their own, but not so strong that they become threats themselves." Captain Lee Do-hyun had been promoted to admiral and now commanded the Rapid Response Fleet. His ships could reach any threatened system within days, bringing overwhelming force to bear against aggressors before they could establish defensive positions. "Admiral," reported his intelligence officer, "we've detected military buildup by the Nexaron Empire near the border of the protection zones. They appear to be planning aggressive action against the Yeltani colonies." Do-hyun studied the tactical displays. The Nexarans were testing human resolve, seeing if the protection zones were real or just empty threats. "Deploy the fleet," he ordered. "Full intimidation protocols. Let's remind them what happened to the last empire that attacked peaceful colonies. The human fleet appeared in Nexaran space 12 hours later. 50 black warships took positions around the enemy military bases, their weapons powered but not yet firing. "This is Admiral Lee Do-hyun of the Terran War Machine." His message went out on all channels. "You are planning aggressive action against species under human protection. You have 24 hours to stand down your forces and withdraw from the border region. This is your only warning." The Nexaran Emperor tried to negotiate, offering to limit his expansion in exchange for human recognition of Nexaran territorial claims. "There will be no negotiation," Do-hyun replied. "You have 23 hours and 47 minutes remaining." The Nexaran fleet withdrew 16 hours later. Ambassador Han Yuri was building the new diplomatic framework that would govern galactic relations. The old system of competing empires and constant border disputes was being replaced by something unprecedented, a galaxy where aggression was simply not tolerated. "The Galactic Peace Accords are now signed by 47 species," she reported, to the Terran High Command. "Each signatory agrees to resolve disputes through arbitration rather than military action. They also agree to accept human intervention if they violate the accords. The accords were backed by the simple reality of human military power. Any species that chose aggression over diplomacy would face the same fate as the Vorthax." Engineer Bak Ji-woo was designing the monitoring systems that would maintain galactic peace. Sensor networks throughout human-protected space would detect military buildups and suspicious fleet movements, providing early warning of potential conflicts. "The goal is prevention," he explained to his design teams. "We want to identify problems before they become wars." On Earth, the memorial to the colony victims was nearly complete. Dr. Park So-ra stood in the memorial garden, reading the names of the 2.3 million beings who had died in the Vorthak attacks. Her daughter's name was carved in stone alongside. Farmers, teachers, refugees, and children from a dozen different species. "Ma'am," said Commander Choi Hye-jin, approaching quietly, "the Galactic Council is requesting a formal meeting. They want to discuss humanity's new role in maintaining interstellar peace." Park smiled slightly. The same Galactic Council that had remained silent when human colonies burned was now eager to work with the species that had avenged those deaths. "Tell them we'll consider it," she replied, "but make it clear that our terms are non-negotiable. Peace through strength, protection for the innocent, and swift, certain punishment for anyone who targets civilians." The meeting took place on the neutral world of Thylex Prime, with representatives from over 100 species in attendance. Supreme Fleet Commander Kim Tae-ho led the human delegation, flanked by the officers who had overseen the destruction of the Vorthak Empire. "The galaxy has changed," Kim announced to the assembled delegates. "For too long, aggressive species have been allowed to prey on peaceful ones. The weak have suffered while the strong took what they wanted. That age is over." The Galactic President, a dignified being from the ancient Thylex Consortium, spoke carefully. "Commander Kim, while we appreciate humanity's commitment to peace, some species are concerned about the concentration of military power in human hands." "They should be concerned," Kim replied bluntly, "but not for the reasons they think. Any species that chooses cooperation over conquest has nothing to fear from human power. But those who dream of empire and expansion should be very afraid indeed." Minister Park stood to address the assembly. "My daughter was 8 years old when the Vorthax killed her. She drew pictures of humans and aliens living together in peace. The Vorthax called that weakness and tried to destroy it.